public hearing for the 116 Main redevelopment public comment to order. I think Mike's gonna abstain from the majority of this meeting, correct, Mike?
Yeah.
So as acting second in command, I'll call it to order now.
And the deputy mayor.
And deputy mayor, yes. Chris, I don't know how you want to proceed with public comment. Do you want to just open it up to the public to start, or do you want to run an overview of the 3 proposals received, or how would you like to start?
Great. I was envisioning that people, if they did have comment, that they would come forward and actually voice what they want to the council. If they want more, they can ask more, and we will provide more information if needed.
I think a couple of the proposers are here. If there is questions maybe that weren't included in the proposal, they can maybe speak to some of those questions if they have the answers off the top of their heads too. So why don't we do that? We'll just start with anybody that has a comment, question, or concern can voice it now, and we'll kind of go from there. So is everybody in the room aware of the 3 proposals? I mean, they were published in the paper, okay,
And then,
so is that maybe your question as far as?
I wouldn't mind a brief, each person present a little bit of.
Sure.
Well, hang on.
We did have an interview process, but as, you know, for more public knowledge, if it's not out there, there were 3 proposals received. 1 from Lost Sanity Brewing, 1 from Peach Construction, and 1 from Gunderson Construction. What's that? Oh, Peach Company, sorry.
My only fear is we've been down this road, so we've already explained this once before.
Sure.
I don't think the people, besides the paper, I mean, I think we should have something that people can look at all 3 proposals.
And I don't have.
expected that to actually be here.
I don't, so the process, Joanne, for your information, the process was, we received 3 proposals, we opened those 3 proposals at a, RFP opening, a month ago? Do you have the date on that, Chris? But it's super important. 2 weeks after that, or a week and a half after that, we had interviews with each person that made a proposal, or each company that made a proposal. We asked follow-up questions from the proposal, and they did a short presentation on the proposal itself and their vision for what that segment of Main Street would look like as a final completed project. From there, we've kind of planned this public comment session, and from here, we'll take any public comments into consideration, and then move forward with awarding the proposal. So I guess, do you have specific questions about what the plans are, or what?
I was just going to show the rendering.
Sure.
Each package is up there that
So-
came in.
I've got it. I was just so she could see.
And for your information, Joanna, too, there was a scoring criteria that took place, so all members of the EDA, and now we've kind of removed Mike's scores because he's abstaining from the process, but all members, based on 7 criteria: professional licenses, the use of local subcontractors, timeline, design appearance, estimated market value of the finished product, and overall proposal and compliance with the proposal. It was all scored out. Those scores will become public knowledge. We can make them public now if anybody wants to hear exactly what the scores were.
I would be interested in what the scores were.
Sure. So after scoring all three proposals, and removing
Yeah.
Mike's score,
Andy, I think what we're going to do is we're going to give like a brief, presentation from each proposal. I just think it's kind of better.
Okay.
So Caleb, I'm gonna ask you if you come up and maybe just do a brief presentation to everybody. I have all your packet here and everything.
Sure.
I
If
think,
if I may ask, has the decision already been made based on the scores?
no, it'll be voted on after this meeting, or tabled and voted on after that at the next EDA meeting.
so we're gonna start with Caleb. Is
What's that?
one of the renderings that you brought in.
After short.
How much time do you think?
Whatever you wanna give right now.
Well-
If you wanna pass this around.
Yep. Start your review, Ben. So keep it pretty short and sweet. So our proposal is if awarded, we take over the fire hall as kind of our primary spot. We'd actually move our entire brewery over there. We're gonna change the lower of the back fire hall area into our production facility, which is needed at this point in time. Our tap room is hanging on, but our production facility is at the point where we are outgrowing our cooler. We've ordered another tank, which means our cooler is now gonna be at that point. If we get some more cooler space or can find some more space to hold things, at some point in time, we'll outgrow our production facility. With that being said, you kind of see how we're gonna do the tap room there. And so we'll arrange the kind of the main, where there's the basement below the fire hall, that'll be kind of our main area. And then the old ambulance garage will then turn into kind of an overflow area / party room, or a secondary tap room if the party is so big that we need to go into the main area. The other areas, we would then do kind of a build to suit to rent out for retail or offices as needed. We would try to maintain all of that, ownership of all that. Although if some arrangement came up in the future, we would definitely look at probably selling those two parcels. So both the existing city hall and the old insurance company, which is now overall city hall. So any questions based off of that?
Caleb, go ahead.
So if you said you may, sell off the other part, but would you actively immediately start building and start making that into viable stuff in the village?
We would look for people to rent out, and then we would allow them to build it out to whatever their specifications are. It's rather difficult for us to start building out right away when, if we say Bob wants to do a flower shop, and if we build it out for, say, retail clothing, that wouldn't fit, so we'd have to kind of find somebody to be in that space and then see what they wanted to do before we can discuss building that out.
But there is generic fittings for that, correct?
Correct, so.
Caleb, do you see any, in your previous presentation, you mentioned that you wanted to go from currently, 200 barrels? Correct? Is that about what you're?
That's about what we're doing per year now, and I wouldn't, at the top of my head, we'd probably be looking to expand that at least tenfold.
Right.
I know the percentages get to be fun to say. You could say you're going up to 2,000%, but we have a 5-barrel brew house now, and so the tank we've ordered is a 10-barrel, so we'll double batch into that, so you could say that we increased our production by 100%. If we moved into a facility like that, we could house, say, a 10-barrel 3-vessel. And I know this is kind of getting in the weeds of brewing, but there's a point where you can do multiple batches and you can turn that system over and over and over again. In a 3-vessel, you can get a turn about every 3 hours. So we could potentially run, say, a 60-barrel tanks
Sure.
in our system now. So,
But you're talking about a substantial amount of growth as far as in the amount of beer produced itself.
right.
Do you foresee any issue with odor, byproduct, incoming product, as far as being next to the rest of the downtown? That was a question I got a couple times as to what's it gonna do to not only the residential neighborhoods, nearby, across the street, down the street, but also to the theater or to, a laundromat. If you're brewing 10 times as much beer in that facility as you are in your existing facility, what's it gonna do to the atmosphere around the facility?
Well, while we're making beer, there is gonna be kind of a order that is there, but no different than when you walk past, say, a restaurant cooking burgers, just it's a different order, no difference than other places. So while we're making the product, there will be an order, but after that, that order will not be
It
there.
smells
So.
like green, and Holy Downs is 3 times bigger.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
all saw that. You know, the new plant.
No, I'm not
That's
saying,
not-
I'm not saying that there's a potpourri factory somewhere else in town.
No,
I was just
it's
asking
like
a
green, it
question.
smells like.
Yeah.
I envision bringing, since we don't really have a garage door now, what we're doing right now is I'm parking my pickup truck out front with a pallet of grains in there, and one bag at a time, I carry it in, and then out the back, we have bins of the spent grain, and one bin at a time, we carry it out the back. So what we do is we move the stuff in and out of the back garage doors via probably a forklift and trailers.
And then as the, production grew, I would assume there would be exhaust filters and some stuff that you could do to minimize that as much as possible.
There is all the above,
Yeah.
but you gotta get to that point first, but at 60 barrels, I know it sounds like a lot right now, and you gotta think right now, we'd be talking about a 60 barrel system. In comparison, Shell's has 1,000 barrel tanks. So it's a magnitude of scale that we're really not quite there. I think even like places like that, they will actually capture their own CO2. They'll actually then compress it down and then use that again for carbonating and serving later, so.
Yeah, I wrote a couple of samples shells, I know that's one.
So, but again, it's just one of those magnitude scale. We've been talking about getting to the scale, and I hate to reference other breweries, but if anybody's ever been to Mankato Brewery, that's the scale size we'd be looking at doing. And when you start going into distribution, we would have to grow that rapidly, very, very quick, because we would then be signing over our product to a distributor, and then they'd be coming and picking up, semi-loads of it at a time, bringing it out to bars, restaurants, and liquor stores all at once. And so it's one of those things that we've only been doing self-distribution right now because we can control our volume out the door now. When you go to that size, you need to grow in a hurry.
Yeah.
So. Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay.
then we will have, I'll take that back, if you want, I'll put it back in the packet. Nick, you wanna come up and give a little bit on your presentation?
So our intent is to take down the old city hall and the police station. And the intent is to create more apartments and more businesses in Madelia. I just think, obviously we've been in construction for a long time and we see this happening in all these other towns and stuff. And I want to take the opportunity to do that, to create more spaces. We have the option to do this and maybe also purchase Michelle and Jeff's building too, and actually go farther and create 5 new spaces. And with that being said, we've had a lot of people already interested in coming to Madelia. This is happening in St. Peter, Mankato, and Wallam. And I've had a tenant that was looking at it and asked if they could even partner with, Caleb, you guys have a great business, and I can appreciate that. And I'm willing to work with you guys. You kind of came late to call me, last week. Before that, maybe we could have worked something out. And I'm not saying we can't do that, but I already had a big tenant come in and say that they would like to partner with the brewery, Hope and Faith, Sweet and Deed, and the other person there on Main Street. So it's a great opportunity to expand and get more people into Madelia. I just feel like Medelia's been growing, and it's unfortunate the fire happened and stuff, but that created such a big draw for Madelia. Crystal is just, I hear things from all these people I'm talking to in different towns and stuff. That's what they say. They're like, what a community. So I just would like to take the opportunity to take that building and build, add apartments and viable spaces there for it, so.
Nick, you kind of spoke to it, but I think there is a trend, especially in both larger and smaller Main Street settings, of having a mixed use, you know, residential slash commercial setting, a walk, work, live type of situation where, you know, it's for a number of reasons, low carbon input, you know, the ability to live above where you work or whatever it may be, but it's kind of coming back. And I think you kind of seen that in the past in like the True Value building or some of these other buildings that have apartments where the merchant or whoever might have lived above the establishment at the time, and then it kind of went away with the, you know, federal housing after World War II and all that stuff, but now it's kind of coming back, probably because of $5 gas and some of these other things too, but it is coming back to be one of those things where it's kind of a driving force in communities of all sizes. When you talked about apartments and you talked about the 12 potential apartments, maybe you can speak to exactly what you're talking about for apartments as far as what you're kind of envisioning for, you know, is it gonna be a luxury apartment, a middle class apartment, is it gonna be economical living? Maybe you can kind of speak to what your vision is for that and maybe what you're looking at for sizing as far as if they're gonna be 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, single bath.
I think we have to do some studies for that.
See what
But
the need
you know, looking at these other projects that we've done in the past and stuff, there are a lot of, you know, Mankato has studio apartments. There's not even a bedroom in there. It's just one room, you know, but that's, you know, a fast-moving town over there. I envision here at least 2-bedrooms, units up there, some 1-bedroom units. I don't know that I would put any 3 bedrooms up there, but, you know, that's what I see. In middle of the road apartments, obviously they would be brand new. So I think that getting more people on Main Street would be nice too for able to walk to the stores and stuff. And I know the brewery, you guys mentioned that a lot of your clients or your people that come in and customers come from out of town. I get that. I mean, my hat's off to you guys. You know, you guys are doing a great job. I just, if I can help you guys too, that's what we're here for.
So Nick, let me ask you this. Have you been a part of a project like this before in other locations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, right now there's 2 or 3 of them active, and I just opened another plant today that, and it's an older town that they're revitalizing some old buildings, like the city hall and stuff. I don't think it's feasible to keep city hall and stuff. The basement structure is not okay, so I want to take that out. The fire station was built with the intent to put a
Stop on that for a
second
second.
floor.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you say structurally you don't think that's sound?
Yeah, I don't feel like I would put business in there. I mean, it would depend
why
on
is
what
that?
type of business goes in there, the flooring, you know, it squeaks, everything else. To get a higher end tenant to come to Medilia, I mean, it's hard to get new people to come to Medilia to be customers. If I can give them something nice to look at, brand new, shiny, that way it draws customers, because customers, I mean, you can attest to the fact that you have something that's very nice, they like that. They like clean restrooms, they like that. So it's just, if I can create a nice space like that.
Well, so given your expertise, do you have any concerns about the structural integrity of those buildings?
Looking at it one time, you know, I don't know. I can't attest that it's going to fall down in time. I don't know, but I think that it's just feasible to take it down and do a patio or do, you know, a 1-story flat grade there. Because I know there is water issues in some of those buildings and stuff, and
That's kind of what I'm getting after.
that will take care of that.
Got it.
How far are you taking down to, or?
We don't know yet, but I would like to go down to the lawyer's office if I could. That building looks really sound, the foundation underneath that
And you're
building.
gonna put 5 up there in that area?
Well, so that's where I was going. The fire hall and the ambulance garage was built as a storm shelter and a fallout shelter, storm shelter, I suppose. Yeah, so that is a precast T building, and it was allocated to have another level on it. Why it wasn't built, I don't know, but they shared the plans with me, and it was designed to have, it showed, you know, a building up there. So I'm assuming, I haven't dug into it, because obviously once if we are awarded this, then I will have an engineer everything and make sure that it's safe for the public, but that had a second story on it, so we're gonna keep the precast buildings, but take down the buildings that are wood.
So out of curiosity, if you were to build these apartments, where are people gonna park?
We'll create that, you know, we've talked about the recycling center and stuff, taking that down. There's public parking behind that whole area there as well. I think that's a situation that they have in every town, throughout, you know, wherever there's businesses on Main Street and apartments and.
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure who you are. What is your specialty? Are you a developer
We are in construction.
or? Okay, so you work for a construction company? Okay.
So would you sell off pieces, or would you
That
rent?
would be the intent over time, to create, what I envision is each space right now is allocated to 30 feet. Storefront is 30 feet. So what I would like to do is keep it that way and then build a firewall up each one. So it's not one continuous unit. I know in Mankato, the plans that I have, Mankato's Studio 5 and Rock Lofts up in St. Peter, they're one building. Each floor is fire rated, but I think the way this is set up, I think I'd like to keep it separated and just create a firewall every 30 feet and then a common stairwell in the back and do some ADA apartments out the back too, for handicap accessible.
Would you build all the way up to as close as you can to the alleyway?
We've got to get measurements and, you know, and that's what I said with the city is I would have this drafted up, take it in front of them, figure out how many parking spaces are needed, how many apartments we can create. You know, it's all pretty tentative stuff right now because we don't know all the square footages and stuff. And but I would only do one level above it. I wouldn't do it at 2 stories, so, or 3 story, excuse me.
But as towards the renderings and everything, the vision would be to have those final 5, basically from the Van Heat building, if possible, or maybe the city hall, you know, common wall, to the end of the fire hall as a full 2-story section of Main Street.
Yeah, I would have to get with the lawyer's office and make sure that their roof can support the snow load off of a building that's that high. So there's some of those questions, but.
But the initial vision
Yeah.
was for that.
Yeah.
So 5 retail spaces with a possibility of up to 12 apartments.
Do you have the people who are already interested in wanting the 5?
What's that?
Do you already have the people who are interested in wanting those 5?
Not 5, no.
So what if someone wanted 2 of them and you could make a 60?
It's, like I said, it's all tentative right now. I think, you know, we'll just have to kind of see how, you know, what companies would come in or, you know, I think Madelia could use a burger restaurant would be great. Don't know if that's the most wonderful place for it, but I don't want to bring in companies that would, you know, impede on existing companies as well. I want to make sure that the big tenant that I do have already kind of lined up will work great with everybody in here. So I think that is just a great opportunity.
For point of comparison too, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but like American Family is a 30-foot space. You kind of did that. You're 60, I'm 60.
Shell spaces, 60,
Yeah,
30.
yeah. So if you can kind of get a feel for what 30 feet is, that would be American Family, or the shell space is 30. You're over 60, I believe. But Culligan and Holding Faith are 60. So we're 230s.
I would like to comment one thing. Nick said that we were late coming to the game, and with Nick wanting to be the developer, I had to reach out to him. He did reach out to us to see about, you know, being one of those tenants in that space. And so, you know, I reached out there, and I would have thought that he had reached out to us that this is one of the places that he thought was really good. That had been the rumor for a long time that the brewery would like to go into those spaces. And then the part that we're missing here is, for the public, to demolish those buildings, you have the funds to do that, or who's supposed to pay for that?
Yeah, that should be under a grant underneath the, like these guys said, this went out for bid. We already did our presentation, everything was in the paper. There's grant money that's available to do that stuff, so we want to take advantage of that if we can in Madelia. I mean, that's a great opportunity to help build this stuff and to put more money into it.
So I have a question for Chris. Is that grant money available for any of the people that were looking to redevelop that?
Yeah,
Or
it's
just-
Yes,
deed.
absolutely.
It's deed. If you go on the website for deed, you'll come up with redevelopment, loans and grants.
Before I ask that, I had a question kind of on the similar vein, and it's just, yeah, how much, I imagine since you're in construction, you or somebody in your company has estimated your cost, and do you have that figure with you?
I do, but I don't feel like I need to disclose that for any reason. I mean.
Will the grant cover the whole thing?
The grant doesn't cover the building and what we're doing. The grant only covers the demo of the existing
So, and
building.
maybe we can just share the numbers that were given in the proposal as far
Yeah,
as-
I think we had mentioned that it was $2 million is kind of what we
Right.
think it would be worth once we are done with what we're doing.
So in the three proposals, the final number values for each proposal as far as the estimated, and it's just loose numbers, estimated market values, after completion, Los Sanity's was around $1 million or $1 million. Matt Gunderson's was, in that $500,000 range, and Peach Company's was at $2 million as far as estimated market value after completion. Now, these are all, very tentative redevelopment. Without having an actual plan set, anybody that, looks at any, especially with that building and the, nest of issues that could come up, I mean, I'm sure that it could be a pretty fluid situation until an actual finalized plan set is, developed, no matter who takes it on. And I think all three parties were aware of, the possibility of it being, I think Nick kind of solved some of that problem with the demolition, because then you're not talking about saving basements and saving foundations that are, in some of those cases, stone, some of those cases, who knows what kind of, on the front end, there's tree roots and all sorts of problems that were on Main Street previous, so I think you eliminate a lot of that by removing the buildings themselves. But it's still gonna be a process, and it's definitely gonna be, a project that's gonna draw a lot of attention. That was one of the other questions we had for all the proposed, people that made the proposals was, this is gonna be, something that's gonna change our Main Street, much like the fire did. We have to be aware that the public is very interested in the project, and they're gonna want updates as to, no matter who gets it, what's going on there until it's complete and the, stuff is for sale or for lease or whatever, and past that, so.
So all three of them are not in the demolition? His proposal
Next was the
in
only proposal to,
So the 2 million is including the demolition without the grant?
No.
'Cause that's
no,
a significant
it's
difference of
it's
three
the
different
estimated
costs.
market value of the property
Okay.
after completion.
Okay.
In his, without, not an appraised market value, just the estimated market value of the project.
Okay.
And anyone can answer that. So, no matter who gets it, the financing falls on who gets it, not the people of the city?
Correct, so
Okay.
that was some of the other questions during the actual presentations. Not just the financing, but the financing, the marketing, the resale, and any easements that need to be attained to, do the actual construction, plus any permittation, inspection, final inspection will all have to be the developer's responsibility. And that was pretty upfront that's, the city's a partner, but that's part of the reason that this process is taking place, is because the city doesn't want to do the redevelopment. We want to sell the property so the developer can come in and develop it.
You said sell the property.
Was there a price?
Yeah, so the prices were, the Fenskys offered $1, Nick has offered $1, and the Gunderson proposal was an offer of $60,000. So that was all figured into the scoring. And I have the scoring right here out of a possible 400 points if people are interested. With the mayor's scores removed, we had the Fensky score at 309, the Gunderson score at 325, and the Peach score at 383.
Reiterate what?
So yeah, so the criteria were professional license, and that mainly dealt with construction licensing, with a possible 10 points and a max point value of 40. Subcontractors and the use of local subcontractors with a, thanks, with a, total point value per judge at 10 points, a maximum point value of 40. Timeline, at 20 points and a maximum, point value of 80. Design appearance from elevations or blueprints with a maximum, or with a 20 point per category and a maximum of 80. And final estimated market value with 20 points. Overall compliance with the RFP was 10 points, and construction references or personal references was 10 points. And we'll make all those scores public.
Are all three of them tearing down, demolishing?
No, just Nick was the only one that was not going to. Nick was also the only one that was going to add a second story too. So Matt's and Caleb's were both build to suit, except for Matt's proposal was build to suit for the entire property. Caleb's was more build to suit for just the city hall property. The only thing I think that was common was probably an agreement that the police garage at some point will have to come down. I don't think anybody was going to stick any money into the police garage. So.
Who is going to start immediately?
No, I don't want it.
The fastest timeline, fastest turnarounds were a 2023 start with hopefully a 2023 finish for Nick's. I think Caleb had a first year plan to get the brewery moved for the most part into the firehouse, and then as tenants arrive, but he has a 3-year plan with maybe a final completion. And then I think Matt's proposal was 23, 24, but it was more as people approached him for leasing space, he would build a suit and maybe carve out the properties as those opportunities arose. So there wasn't necessarily a direct timeline. It was gonna kind of be a custom build to fit as people approached him for the property.
But everybody expressed interest, including Matt, that people have approached on a lot of different projects around town, so.
Correct. And without the competition, I mean, I'd be the first to say that I'd be comfortable turning over the property to any of the 3 developers. I have no problems with that. I thought all 3 proposals were thought out, were, well received. Asking all 3 proposal, all 3 entities behind the proposals questions about them. They all viewed the property. I think they all knew what they're getting into. But I think that was, other than this public, interaction, I guess I don't know.
So.
Unless there's concerns, I guess I don't know what the.
Do that. I mean, so as a council, we're in a great position. Because the biggest concern we had is that we would have to split off the parcels.
Right.
And if we had to do that, that would have required surveys that we don't have, and that would take, some of those properties have been there for centuries. So the fact that we were able to have 3 proposals that would go after all those properties was huge. It's awesome.
Right.
The problem we have is we had to score what's the best of the 3 proposals. So we got 3 good proposals, and we had to score what was the best of the 3.
The other thing that, is like
To have our problem.
like anything in government,
Sucks to be
it's
us. We have
a
our problem.
process. So for us to sell, Main Street after we go through and, build a government center. It's a process of probably 20 meetings, before just discussing what the process is gonna look like to actually getting into the process. So that's why we wanted to do this first. Our concern was that if we couldn't sell all three as a single entity and we had to break them up and try to sell each individual, well, then you're talking about possibly 10 to 20 meetings per property to try to figure out and then try to find individual buyers with each property. It becomes a quite convoluted process as far as trying to actually get something to happen. And I think our biggest fear as a council was having vacancy after we moved out of, having an empty segment of Main Street without a developer or without a, plan moving forward. But I think these three proposals.
Yeah, so and if I could add something to that, let's be clear. I mean, I don't wanna sound arrogant, but we have the best Main Street around. Pick a town. Sleepy Eye, St. James, New Ulm, Minnesota Street. We have the best Main Street around. We wanna make sure what we do with this piece of property adds to what we have, that augments the rest of what we have. That's really the problems that we have to get after. We're extremely fortunate. We've got the best Main Street around. So we wanna make it a little bit better. We just wanna be very methodical and objective about how we get to that point.
I have a couple questions, and perhaps this information is out there and I don't know, what is Matt's proposal? What is his plan, Matt's?
He wanted to basically purchase the property in its entirety for $60,000 and build the suit for people as they came to him over the next 3 years.
Okay.
Without changing the appearance of the structures at all.
Gotcha.
Putting up interior walls or whatever was needed depending on the customer that came to him.
Sure.
But he didn't have, he had reached out to individuals that had interest, but he didn't necessarily have a plan as far as, and I don't wanna speak for him, he's not here today, but he didn't necessarily have a plan that he conveyed to us as far as day one, this is who was gonna move into this section and so on and so
He
forth.
didn't have that plan, and I actually, so the other part of it is that he wanted to preserve buildings as they are. There's a bit of complication with that, and we're learning that with the chamber building at the corner, because Christensen
Yeah.
Communications is spending a bit of chunk to make that building stay, because it's the oldest building in Whatcom County. But his plan would be to preserve what we have and try and preserve that and keep that going.
But you guys moved because it wasn't sound.
Correct.
So why would you keep it?
Well, there was other reasons why we moved. I mean, we were busting at the seams and.
It has a lot to do.
The other thing is, so real quick, I'll jump on that grenade. The other thing is, I personally, as an emergency responder in the Air Force, am very concerned that our fire trucks roll out of Main Street. That really concerns me. And so now we have them rolling out somewhere else. The other thing is, and I learned this as we went through the whole new municipal building, is that when those trucks roll out, they now don't have to worry about if the train's on the train tracks.
Nice.
So if they roll out from where they are now, they gotta worry about the train being on a benzene. Where their new location, they don't have to worry about that. So that to me was the biggest issue. Sorry.
Well, and I think this meeting alone speaks to another need that was, this meeting would not be possible in that building. It will be possible in the new building.
Great point.
The other thing is with COVID, we couldn't even meet in the old building because we was too small. So there was, plus, a new fire hall had been on the agenda for 30 years prior to me coming into office 10 years ago. So it's been 40 years in the making. So when that opportunity presented itself, I don't think there was any way around it, especially for the opportunity that was there. But it did open up this opportunity too, and we wanted to capitalize on this opportunity the best we can.
And we got, so the fire that happened, that wrecked part of Main Street, was actually because of the business owners that were part of that, and the ones that decided to stay, whether it was Plaza, whether it was Hope and Faith, whether it was the Tresaviona, the fact that they decided to stay and had the heart to stay made this the best Main Street. We just want to add to that. And I think that's a really big key part of this.
So if I can offer some feedback, I have a couple points here. So, I own 2 businesses in town. It takes time to find places to rent here. For my clinic building, 5 months I waited. For the Evoke building, 2 years we looked for something. There is just not a lot of space here. And I know in talking with the city and talking with the chamber, how many businesses were turned away for lack of rental space in the city. So it's definitely needed. Apartments, so I think that Lynn and I are probably the only ones that have people living above buildings on Main Street. Am I correct? Okay, she's fortunate enough to have a garage to park underneath her building. My renter doesn't get that luxury. There's nowhere to park, and I can tell you it's a problem. And when you are presenting, and this is why I asked Nick this question, when you are presenting to people about renting, you need to have enough parking, and it needs to be close. I feel sorry for my renter. I mean, luckily she can park somewhat near, but she has to go up a pretty significant flight of stairs with her groceries, with moving. So I don't know that having, as much as we have a need for housing and apartments, I don't know that that's the best location. Great idea though, and I appreciate that you brought it up, but I think we could better look at housing in other areas.
And we had major questions about the parking. We had, and I think that Nick is willing to be flexible, and we as a city and as a council are willing to be flexible and, coming to a solution with parking. There is a lot of, parking in the back that's underutilized, and there will be an opportunity to increase the parking in the back, but we'll definitely be looking into the number of stalls available versus the number of apartments that we think we can.
And that goes back to the other part too, of the fact, if I can jump on that, moving the recycling shed. First off, if I lived right next to the recycling shed, I'd be thrilled that thing's gonna be moved. So we're gonna move it. And we've talked about that, Ben Lehman's been all over that. So we're gonna move that. That's gonna increase some additional parking. But to your point, we will find other places to add additional parking. And if we have to think this through and be thoughtful about how the parking goes, regardless of where this proposal ends up, we really have to think that part through.
Absolutely.
And it's a concern that we have annually about parking. Anywhere from restriping Main Street to, finding a way to add additional signage to make sure that people are aware that the parking is available in the back, to, having chamber maps and everything show rear parking and parking available. And I don't know if we'll have to add it to menus and have to add it to things to let everybody know that there is parking. But I think that is, definitely something that's talked about often.
Parking ramp.
So the other thing,
Well, I got a couple of things, like I said, structures.
How cool would that, real quick, how cool would that be?
Oh, totally.
A town our size?
Yeah.
We need a parking lot.
And this, I'm gonna really go out on a limb here, cause this is rumored, totally rumored, but if listen to me, how old I am, quick corner, just closes.
That's showing
what-
how old you are.
That's how old I am.
Actually, Christie, it's
Is
closing
there-
tomorrow at 2:00.
Okay, so not rumor, okay.
That's not rumor.
But my thought too, in thinking of all these plans, parking, I mean, not that we want a parking lot in the middle of town, but
Yeah,
it
but
would
they-
open up a
Again,
lot
and I
of
brought it up at the last meeting, that
space.
they have that grass area there that's
Yes,
been,
that was Hazel's.
hasn't been utilized for,
Right.
since the house was torn
Right.
down.
Yes.
I mean, at least it would take care of that end of Main Street,
You
the
could add
theater,
another
and Evoke's not that far
50
down, and
parking
any
spaces
retail's
over
that side, not so
So-
much maybe the apartments.
And like I was talking to some other people, when you go to Mankato, how far away do you park? You don't care if you have to walk 2, 3,
You
4
won't.
blocks.
They're all.
But
Yeah,
us,
but
yeah, but
we're
us.
spoiled.
I know,
We're
but
spoiled.
us as-
We're town rocks.
Yeah, but because we're from town, we don't wanna park a block away.
Yeah, yeah.
We wanna get the spot right in front of the store and then get in it. But if you drove, a half hour to Mankato, you don't care if you block, you park 3, 4 blocks away.
I'm tracking with you totally. But what I'm saying is that's part of what makes this town rock. You don't have to do that. So, and I think Christie raises a great point, is that, so Expressway is closing tomorrow at 2:00. They're done. So, if that's not, that should be well known.
Just
but
make it the ramp at the Legion, it's a big
That was just, I'm sorry to barge in, Tammy, I just been talking
So,
parking.
and I didn't mean to cut you off, what I'm saying is, I think,
there'll be,
beat me up later. But what I'm saying is that I think that that's part of what makes this town so good, is that you don't have to walk half a block. So I think there's a way to work around that.
but Glenn, we're good enough to do it.
Yeah, I agree, yeah, fair point.
It's worth it.
I own that.
Sorry, I just have a couple more points yet. So, structure-wise, we talked about the structure of City Hall. Do you know how many people told us that we were crazy to buy the old building? And that's the first original building from the fire. People are like, are you crazy? What are you thinking? Have most of you been in and looked at how beautiful it is?
Oh, yeah.
With a little bit of care and some time and effort, you can make those buildings to be very, very nice. So that shouldn't be an off-putting factor. Businesses cannot go anywhere around town. Housing can. We want our Main Street to have a thriving business. We were actually offered a free storefront and grant money to open our winery in St. James. We turned it down. This is our home, this is where we wanna be. Like Lost Sanity and Plaza, we bring in a ton of out-of-towners to our business. Those out-of-towners are telling other out-of-towners to come frequent our business. I think we need to reward someone who already has a thriving business in this town to expand and then open up some other business spaces to bring in some other businesses. Nick has some great ideas. Do we need a burger joint? We absolutely do. There's gonna be some other building space that's going to come open that we can put some of those kind of businesses in. Let's see. Yep, I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
So, you talked about how you have the best Main Street. Is it better than Mankato's?
Oh, yeah.
Then why do you wanna make your Main Street look like Mankato's? That's what Mankato's doing. All around Mankato, all the small towns around Mankato, they're doing these commercial, lower levels, apartments on top, and they look like crap. Old buildings have a charm that new buildings do not have.
So I'll jump in that grenade too, and I say that because one of the problems we have is, first, I am concerned about the structural integrity of the other buildings. I'm not an engineer, but I'm concerned about the structural integrity of our city hall. So as far as fixing that part of it, I am concerned. The second part of it is, we have a housing problem, a huge housing problem, and we're landlocked. And as a council, one of the things we work through is we're gonna have to negotiate with some farmers on how do we build housing back out to where it's supposed to go. And this may help solve part of that if we do it thoughtfully and properly.
And I would hope, just like when the fire happened, I bless all these people that rebuilt and made it structurally look and to be old, not, modern. I know there was a lot of talk back then, and I would hope that any of the three would kind of continue that, and I think they would. I mean, to keep that kind of older flair, even though maybe new structure that would be cool.
Yep.
Well, and I can't speak directly for, everything that's happening in Minnesota Street and along, but I'm there. I know quite a bit of what's going on. There is a conscious effort to recreate Minnesota Street, which is maybe one of the most historic streets in southern Minnesota, into a multi-use, functioning spot because of the fact that retail's changed, that, it's not the same retail market of having a men's clothing store on Main Street or having, a non-boutique type of situation. We're looking to create a destination location for a date night or for a family outing or whatever. And I think as long as it's done, like Glenn said, with some forethought, and make sure that it blends and make sure that it all looks, aesthetically pleasing to everybody that comes to town, the value of having new build properties is gonna outweigh some of the, chance of maybe saving a historic building that's not structurally sound in the long run.
Well, the second level doesn't have to be apartments, it can be other businesses.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly, but I don't think that it's pigeonholed to be anything, to be honest with you at this point.
Okay, go ahead.
We have 10 businesses versus 5.
So, and again, maybe this is something everybody knows and I don't, so we have a couple of empty buildings on Main Street at this time. And I don't know what the situation is with the patio next to you, if you own that, or is your thing, you know, why aren't those being developed? And when we're talking about potentially bringing in 5 new ones on the other town, other than the East Park new.
So we have two empty
I think we have
buildings.
two.
Well, I can just guess.
Well, we have the old
28,
flower shop.
number
The old
28.
flower shop.
But that's the resistance to put something in.
That's what I was
People-
wondering,
yeah,
yep,
But,
yep.
but I think Sheldon has not been open, he's been looking
Right.
at doing something for himself. in that
That's kind of what I
space.
wondered, and then I didn't know about the patio thing with Crystal, that was
The
coming back to me.
empty shell, right?
Right, the empty shell, yeah.
The empty shell, that,
For $250,000.
and that's Gunnarson's, right? Yeah. So those are the two that are only.
Yeah,
sitting
exactly. And it's been empty, other than the time period that Crystal had for the patio. Why isn't, and is it because of the cost factor? Is it because the city said no to something? That's all questions I don't know, so.
It's expensive, we talked to him about it when we bought our building,
Yeah.
where you go. He wanted $250,000 for it, and it has no utilities running in it, it's not affordable for anybody.
Thank you for that.
And is that's a 60?
That's a 30.
That's 30?
Yeah, it's too small for our needs, we've already looked at that spot, so.
And I got one thing to say. Doug, you know, when you said I didn't reach out to you, obviously you were bidding on it as well, so I wouldn't reach out to you because of that fact. And I wanna let the other tenants in Madelia know that I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. I would love the opportunity that if we did that and they all wanna jump out of their new buildings and come over to this new building, great, or, you know, even, if the bakery wanted to come down and do a nice new bakery in town, it would be. I mean, it's a lot of open things. And the tenant that I have, nothing is set in stone right now with that as well. So there's room to bring in other things for that. And I would love to see if some people did move, then we could redo the other buildings as well and keep this town going and revitalizing it. I mean, we have a construction company in town with a lot of employees that do the same thing. They eat at your restaurant, they eat at your restaurant, they do that, you know, we have that here as well. I have a lot of skill in being two here in Adelia, and I wanna see it grow because I have kids too that are growing up here, and I want that for them, so. Adelia is a great town, it's awesome.
And we're blessed to have 3 proposals in front of us that all will work. So,
Great point. Great point.
I'll have one thing just, and nothing to do with anything other than the Madelia phenomenon. Now, the Madelia phenomenon, to me, is Tammy, myself, Ryan, Lynn, all the people in town here that have remained in business in Madelia. We're all Madelia graduates, we have our heart and soul here. And Nick is raised here too, I guess. I don't know, like Crystal here, I'm not sure.
Madelia, yeah.
You're young guys, you know, so after my kids graduate, but anyway, the reason guys be really successful is the phenomenon, we reinvest in this is our home, and had businesses from out of town come in and gone into all these places, and the fire burned it and taken the money out. And the phenomenon was that people have their heart and soul here and they rebuilt and kept Main Street vibrant. And that's my concern, to keep the Madelia phenomenon going.
and I totally agree with that, Doc, but.
Crystal, you must have graduated from Madelia.
Right.
You're our honorary graduate.
If that was the only way to do it, the graduating class of Madelia this year was 20,
Yeah.
30? Is that the pool of people we're gonna pull out of for businesses moving forward? I mean, I think for this town to maintain relevant, to maintain, you know, we wanna include everybody, we wanna work with everybody, but we also are gonna have to recruit people from out of town. We're gonna have to recruit new members to the golf course.
I'm just saying, that's why Medina
Yep.
is successful, though.
And I
Other towns
totally
have
agree
what
with
makes
you.
Medina successful.
Yep.
It's the fact we have the Medina phenomenon that has happened for the last 30, 40 years.
And I agree, yep. But we want everybody to share in that success too. Everybody from out of town, we wanna recruit other great business owners and other great business opportunities from out of town, as well as grow the businesses that are here. So, I think that's everybody's goal. Is there any more public comment? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.